Hello and welcome to the Now Educated podcast. We continue on this conversation around inflation and more importantly, how to come out as a victim as opposed to a victim. Now, we started talking about some of the asset classes that could help you fight and create a situation where your money grows at a rate that's faster than inflation. Remember, inflation results when you need more money to buy the same things you used to buy with less money. So it erodes the purchasing power of your money. So one of the things that I want to talk and encourage us to start thinking about is, since your money is buying less, one of the things you need to do is start earning more money. And how do we do that? If you're an employee, well, your lowest hanging fruit, and that's if you're adding value to your organization and your organization is not going through a situation where business is going down. If you are one of those fortunate organizations that sometimes benefit in the environments you find yourself in, or the country you live in is in, and your income is going up and you can see that you are contributing to the growth of that income, I want you to start looking at yourself as a business professional. You are an entrepreneur in your own right, or a form of a business owner. The only thing is you have one customer and you spend the bulk of your time serving that one customer's other customers. And if that one customer's other customers are increasing in number or increasing in the amount of purchases or things they're buying from you or the business, then you may have grounds to go and see your boss and tell him or her that you want to increase your prices because you're adding value. Just like that 5 minute, maybe an hour conversation could result in you being able to increase the amount of money coming to you. And just like that, you have found a way to start coping with this thing called inflation. Now, if you're saying, hey, Terrence, I work for myself, how do I increase the amount of money I can earn? Well, two things. Firstly, start investing in yourself. And secondly, when you do get the money, and maybe let me start with the second one, we need to embrace a culture of delayed gratification. You see, one of the hardest things, being my age and younger, and I'm just on the door to 40, is that my generation and the generation I feel that's coming after me, we tend to want to show people when we make it. When we've got a breakthrough in our life and money comes through, for some reason we feel the need that other people need to know that we have made money. And the downside is we end up buying things we don't need to impress people that don't like us, and most likely that will forget about what we bought. And in the worst case, are waiting for what we bought to break down or get lost, or for us to really come out and see that, oh man, I bought something I couldn't afford and it goes to waste. Then they laugh at us. Let me share with you a story of a lady I met about 2 weeks ago. I'm from Ohio, so we were in a neighborhood called Hillside. And my wife and I were meeting this real estate agent called Merigold from Fine & Country. Now, I must be honest, the fact that we are going to meet a real estate agent to see a property doesn't necessarily mean we've got the money to buy the property. One thing I learned a couple of years back is sometimes the best time to go property hunting is when you don't necessarily have the money, right? But you have the dream. You see, the difference between those who dream and those who live the dream is that those who live the dream have always taken time to understand what the dream costs. Now, I have a dream to own a property, another property, and turn that into an investment property. Do I have all the money to do that right away? I don't. But what I do need to know is how much it costs to get that dream in motion. Because you see, people, men particularly, if you give them a target to aim at, they tend to focus and get the job done. A story is told by Richard Thaler, a Nobel Prize Economics Award winner, where he speaks of an economist at Schiphol Airport, that's the airport in Amsterdam, Netherlands, who realized that, or who was advised that there was so much spillage around the urinal in the bathroom area, in the men's section. And he thought to himself, what if I got someone to carve the image of a fly closer to the mouth of the urinal, what would that do? So he got someone to carve the image of a fly close to the mouth of a urinal. The next time you're in an airport, I want you to look at the urinal. Quite a few airports have adopted this. Why? Because what they began to realize is the moment a man had something to aim at. You see, men, if they've got no vision or focus, they tend to be all over the place. But the moment they gave the men something to aim at, spillage at that airport reduced by 80%. All they did was put something to aim at, and 80% of the spillage, which meant less time spent cleaning by the cleaners, and at least a happier day that you don't have to be cleaning around people's urine all day. 80% reduction. You see, when you give when you give yourself something to focus on, magic happens. A beautiful thing happens. You find a way to begin to get it done. So that's what we're doing. We're going out there to find out what the dream cost. But hey, did I get a little bit more than that? So we're speaking to this lady called Merigold, and she's in her 50s. And one of the things that I've embraced is that I can learn from anyone and everyone. So I wanted to find out what her story was and how she was getting by in the environment we're in, with inflation. And if you're in Zimbabwe, some of the headlines that have come up have started, defeating some people or stealing people's hope of the country ever moving up. So I wanted to hear from her how she's done it. And that's the first thing I think I shared was, before delayed gratification, is investing in yourself. And one way to start investing in yourself, I know some of us are saying, I don't have the money to do that. But one way you can start investing in yourself is opening your eyes to what's happening in and around you, and asking questions from people who seem like they've figured it out, or they are moving in a direction that you'd like to go in. So I sat with Merigold and wanted to find out, what got her into the real estate space. And so what does her life look like as someone who's stayed in Zimbabwe all her life, that's 50 plus years, and sort of built something for herself. And as we spoke, a beautiful thing began to happen. You'd not expect it from just looking at her, but I began to realize, wow, she's wealthy financially and had a wealth of experience and knowledge that could transform my life and the lives of many who will hear her story going forward. One of the things she told me was she learned early on from her grandparents the art of delayed gratification and putting aside money now so that you could have power and choices in the future. So what her grandparents used to do was they worked, and this was probably pre-independence going into independence, they worked as hard as they could, lived frugally, and the money they were able to save, they put away, and little by little they began to buy properties in the high density suburbs. If you're in Harare, that's what you call it. In Bulawayo, Kings stay in the western suburbs. So buy properties in the western suburbs, which were smaller land lots, but where a huge number, a big part of our population tends to stay, especially if you worked in the industrial parts of the city. And they began to save by small lots. If they could access financing, they kept buying. And obviously this required them to not particularly live lives that were lavish, that their friends could see that things were working on. But over time, they were able to build a reasonable portfolio of properties. And as she was growing up as a girl, she started seeing that her grandparents seemed to be working less. And every single month, her grandma would do a couple of trips into town, because they were staying a bit out of town. And from those trips would come back with a bit of money from the properties they owned. And just like that, they were able to build passive or recurring income that they didn't necessarily have to work for each and every time. And the quality of life they were able to afford to live for themselves was remarkable. So what did she do? Remember, the second thing is always work on improving yourself. Is she opened her eyes to what was happening, and as she got older, she also started doing what her grandparents were doing. Started working, made sure she paid herself first, or spent less than she earned. looked for opportunities to earn more, and each time she got to earn that, she put some away. And when they moved with her husband, who happens to be in the construction space and specialize in building houses, you see, another good thing to look out for is, hey, be wise about the person you're going to get married to. They could be a key instrument to your world. So in her case, her husband does construction. So now he could build the homes. That means they could cut costs associated with building the homes. You see, she's not hiring contractors anymore. She is married to the contractor and the guy who knows how to do the things. So they built units. They were building for other people, and the income they're getting from there. So they kept finding ways to add value to more people, and their vision was clear. We want to build a portfolio of properties that are going to pay us and allow us the opportunity or the option not to have to work. And then she said something beautiful to me. And she says, Terrence, the amount of money we are able to collect now from the properties we own allows me to be in a situation where if a family member fell ill and they needed a $2,000 or $3,000 operation, I could find that within a couple of minutes or days. You see, she's built for herself the ability to be emergency proof. She's become an individual who can turn what could have been an emergency or crisis into an inconvenience. You see, her finances give her power over her life. And I was listening to her and I was saying to myself, so how do I get to earn more money? Because that's what needs to happen. I could go and ask for a raise, snap, I kind of own the company. Or I could look out and start asking myself, what can I learn from the people around me? And what do I have to offer people that they'll be willing to pay for? That sounds doable. And when I do that, how do I not just take this money and start spending it on, can you see me? Mama, I made it. They must call me a baller. They must know that there's a Rasta man that exists out there that's paid. Nah, that don't change nothing. How do I invest it in a way that I make more money and consistently begin to make more money? Because in the season I'm in, I have no choice but to make more money. Because inflation is eating at everything I am doing, and it's vicious. So, what are we doing? You start looking at your yard and you're saying, hey, maybe I could put a trampoline here, have some kids come and play. Maybe I could create a wall that people can scale, if you've got the property. And kids can come and those dollars, 50 cents can accumulate. We're on a holiday now in Zimbabwe. Right? Maybe I can hire out and become part of our yard and make it a play center or a birthday space. That's going to put some more money in our pocket and not necessarily require us to be there or to gain new skills. Or maybe we're not going out and looking at these properties. I suppose, how sometimes we want to build one big house and call that our dream house and say, wow, now I've made it. What if we changed our perspective and said, hey, what if on this big piece of land, I put 12 units, 10 units? Yeah, I'm going to build my dream house, definitely, at some point. But what if I focused in the next couple of years at putting down some units? Maybe get into a partnership with a couple of people, but we put down some units. Put down, let's say 5 units. And those 5 units start paying me rentals of $500 a month. That's $2,500 gross. If I spend 20% of that on rates and monthly improvements in the space so that the space remains kosher, that means I'm left with $2,000. Now think about it. How different could your life be if you had passive income of $2,000 coming through? Yeah, it's going to cost you money to build it. But what happens if you've got 10 units on the space? That's $5,000. And that's $4,000 net. You see, it seems impossible when you look at the world around us and the stories that come around that are shared, and they speak of Zimbabwe being this terrible country to live in, Africa being this dark continent, and people are poor and we always needing aid. And if you fall for those stories, and yes, we have interesting leaders, but that doesn't mean that your life has to be a documentary on poverty. You can still build wealth. And if you say, hey, I don't have the money for this partnership, collaboration, that's what the story is about. And if you want to win and beat this thing called inflation, beat this thing called corruption, you got to start thinking differently. It's possible for you to become wealthy, but it's going to require a mindset shift. It's going to require you to get out of that victim mentality and be the victor that you were born to be. Hey, let's close the day. My name is Terrence Mugora, and I hope you're now educated. And you know when you know better, you let other people know better too. Because collectively, when we know better, we do better. And when we collaborate, we make things a whole lot better. Until next time. Thank you so much for watching this and all the clips that we've been putting out there. We love the comments, we love the reactions, and we want to encourage you to do even more. Kindly go out, share this with your friends, share this with someone at work, share it with anyone you know will benefit from this. And most importantly, tell us what you want us to share with you in terms of stuff you want us to talk about or questions you'd like us to answer for you. Remember, the aim of this podcast is to help as many of us build better relationships with money. And we can only do that if we get this to as many people as possible. If you're as honest and as transparent as you can be, so that we answer the stuff that will move your world and help our world to become a better place. Remember, our community is all about getting to know better. And when you know better, we do better. But we want to go an extra step. We want to know better, help others know better. Because collectively, when we know better, we tend to do better. And like we always close, the world will get better. So thank you so much for watching this, and we hope that we can get more and more people to watch this, and we can build a community that ends up winners when it comes to this area of finances.